Hello, I'm Comfort. I'm Madhu with the news at 10, showing on NTA News 24 live from Abuja. Welcome to the news. Now let's get the headlines. World leaders continue to pay tribute to late Chadian President Idris Deby. NNPC advises motoring public to avoid panic buying of petrol as daily supply increases. Federal government takes further steps to secure schools, mobilizes resources to achieve the initiative. And all 6 Premier League teams withdraw from European Soccer League. We are starting the news on a sad note as bandits attacked Greenfield University along Abuja, Kaduna, killing a security guard and abducted yet to be a certain number of students. The State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Aruan, is already visiting the institution to have first-hand information and the extent of the attack. But we'll keep you posted of the details as they unfold. Our world leaders continue to send condolences over the demise of Chadian President Idris Deby. Details with Oyeyemi Ajayi.
The head of the African Union, Musa Faki Mahamat, a former Chadian prime minister, said he was saddened by Deby's death, sending his condolences to his family. France deplored Deby's passing and said it took note of the creation of an interim military body, urging a quick return to civilian rule and a peaceful transition. The White House offered its sincere condolences to the people of Chad on the death of Deby. The European Union's Foreign Affairs Chief, Joseph Borrell, expressed his condolences to the family and to the Chadian authorities and people, saying the EU calls on all relevant actors to act responsibly, the immediate priority being the stability of the country and the region. Meanwhile, European Council President Charles Michel said that the stability, the security and the territorial integrity of the country have to be preserved. President of the United Nations General Assembly, Volkan Bozkir, tweeted his most sincere condolences. Senegal's President Macky Sall honored Deby's memory and contribution to stability in the Sahel. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari expressed sadness over the sudden and tragic death of President Idris Deby of Chad on the front line, fighting against rebel soldiers.
And President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed sadness over the sudden and tragic death of President Idris Deby of Chad on the front line fighting against rebel soldiers. Reacting to the incident on Tuesday, President Buhari said he was deeply shocked and devastated by the sudden death of Idris Deby on the battlefront to defend the sovereignty of his country. According to the president, the late Deby had played a vital role in our regional joint collaboration in the military campaign against the Boko Haram terrorists. President Buhari described the late Chadian leader as a friend of Nigeria who had enthusiastically lent his hand in our efforts to defeat the murderous Boko Haram terrorists that have posed grave security challenges not only for Nigeria but also our African neighbors, especially Chad, Cameroon and Niger Republic. While condoling with the people of Chad and their new leader, President Buhari called for greater collaboration to defeat the terrorists. In the meantime, Nigeria has expressed great concerns over evolving developments in Chad following the death of Idris the death of Idris Deby. In a statement, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyama, said the interim leadership of Chad and all stakeholders, including the two armed groups still fighting, must not allow the country to feed into more chaos with its attendant consequences. Nigeria calls for urgent consideration of dialogue among all key players, saying it is willing to guide and mainstream within the framework of Economic Community of Central Africa States, ECOWAS, and African Union for an early return to democratic governance in Chad. Onyema added that such stabilization move in Chad will ensure peace not only in Chad, but other regions of Sahel. Now, joining us via Zoom to discuss this development is Dr. Adoyin Matthew Omale, political scientist and international relations expert. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. Now, late Deby had played a very active role in our regional joint partnership in military campaign against Boko Haram terrorists. What should the transition committee do to sustain this campaign?
Well, President Idris Deby has done a lot in terms of fighting insurgency in the Chad Basin. In fact, he was killed from reports on the battle line. The transition committee that has taken over has a lot on their hand, especially the insurgency in the northern part of Chad. There's a lot of work to be done, no doubt, and their hands are full. It's just unfortunate that this event has to happen when he had a new term in office. How this all will play out is just a matter of time. In your prologue, I heard the statement by the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs or Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's a trying time for Chad, no doubt.
All right, now that a transitional committee has been formed, what should ECOWAS and other regional bodies do to resolve the crisis in Chad through dialogue to avoid further escalation?
Well, the constitution of Chad says that the power should have been transmitted to the Speaker of the Chadian Parliament. Why they are not doing that, I don't know. The interim government, who is being led by Idris Deby's son, is a military one, and how the EU and the ECOWAS and other international bodies will take the new regime, we will know in a matter of days. However, a military regime is always a military regime, and constitutionalism needs to be restored as quickly as possible to this very poor West African country. Constitutionalism in the sense that I know that the African Union and ECOWAS has taken a stand against military intervention in our African democratic system. So by and large, I think the new government should allow constitutionalism to take place, or constitutionalism to be entrenched by handing over power to the appropriate organ that is supposed to hold power, whether on an interim basis or not, because it's like a monarchy. What is playing out in Chad, to my mind, is like a monarchy. Father dies yesterday and the son takes over the following day. I think they should respect their constitution and let the right thing be done. That is my opinion.
All right, in doing the right thing, what support do you think should be given to Chad to return to democratic rule as soon as possible?
Well, I think the democracy, like I said, elections just finished some few days ago. dissolving parliament, dissolving all democratic institutions, to my mind, is not right. If we are practicing democracy, then the institutions of democracy are more than an individual. The death of President Dabi should not lead to dismantling of all democratic institutions. That is what I'm saying. In as much as the interim government have taken over, to me, it's a military coup. So the earlier they finish whatever time maybe they have and return back to the barracks, the better for democratic practice in Africa and in West Africa specifically.
All right, thank you very much for your inputs there. We're glad you could join us on the news to give us further understanding on the happening in Chad.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Now, moving on, a 10-member American jury found police officer Derek Chauvin guilty of all 3 charges of murder and manslaughter of unarmed Black American George Floyd. The severest charge of second-degree murder carries a maximum 40-year imprisonment. The sentencing will follow in 8 weeks. Analysts say it is a landmark trial on systematic police brutality and racial discrimination against Blacks and other minorities in America. Now you're watching the news at 10 on NTA News 24. There will be more reports after this time out.
Yes, who is there?
Now open, it's me, Emeka.
My brother, how far now?
Bros, is it true that the price of petrol will soon go up again? I don't understand this country again. Food and electricity are expensive. Now I'm hearing that fuel too will increase. Why now?
Emeka, don't let anybody confuse you, please. The regulation of the price of petrol means the market is now open for healthy competition. The price could go up or down. It all depends on the market forces.
The price will still go up again?
Not like that. Nigeria has spent about 10 trillion naira on fuel subsidy. And with this deregulation, that money will be used for other important things like infrastructure and education. This competition will reduce the price in the long run.
Are you serious?
Yes, now. You see how SIM cards are now affordable to all? That's how petrol will be too. PPPRA will not allow Nigerians to be exploited unjustly. Now, go out there and spread the good news.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
This message is brought to you by the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency, PPPRA.
If you just tuned in, this is the news at 10, broadcast live on NTA News 24. Now, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mele Kolo-Kyari, is advising the motoring public to avoid panic buying of petrol as issues resulting in the scarcity of the product has been resolved. The NNPC boss stated this while briefing journalists after an audience with President Muhammadu Buhari.
These queues will go away because there was industrial action by petroleum tanker drivers against their employers, the National Association of Road Transport Owners, around their compensation package. And those issues were not resolved up to yesterday until we intervened to ensure that there's an amicable settlement between the parties so that they will have peace, and then normal loading operations will commence from the depots. As I speak to you this moment now, loading has commenced in all depots in the country. Dispatches of trucks are ongoing in all depots in the country, and they have called off the strike for a period of 1 week so that enable us to intervene and find resolution. So there's really nothing fundamental that is happening now.
He also gave reasons why the NNPC declared that there will be no increase in fuel price for the month of May.
Going on within government to get the best framework for having a fully regulated PMS market. As this is going on, we're engaging all parties and all stakeholders as government, and to make sure that at the end of the day, there's an exit that is beneficial to the ordinary man. And that is why we know we will not be able to complete that in the month of May, and therefore we declare that there will be no increase in fuel price.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has increased the daily supply of premium motor spirit petrol across the country from 550 trucks to 1,661 trucks to combat the buildup of fuel queues in some parts of the country. A statement by the Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs Division, Dr. Kenny Obateru, quoted the Managing Director of the Petroleum Products Marketing Company, Musa Lawan, as saying that there are about 2 billion litres of petrol in strategic depots across the country to keep the nation's supply for 2 months if no drop of fuel was imported in that period. The statement says reports reaching NNPC shows that already trucks have started arriving filling stations, stressing that this will ease out the queues. Lawan disclosed that a 24-hour situation monitoring committee has been set up to track the movements of trucks from the depots to various filling stations across the country. And the PPMC boss explained that the disruption in the distribution chain was caused by a strike embarked upon by petroleum tanker drivers over compensation. Now, the federal government is perfecting the national plan to mobilize resources that will be invested in security of schools and learning communities. Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed disclosed this at a Finance Safe School Forum in Abuja. Musa Bakar tells us more.
12-year-old Hamisa Awal and his friends are amongst the long list of out-of-school children in Nigeria. A problem made worse with abductions of school children, insecurity, and now COVID-19 pandemic. Consequently, an estimated 13 million out-of-school children roam the streets in the country.
Pulling together this compact under your leadership.
This gathering of policymakers and implementers are, however, seeking to change all these. More financing and multi-sectorial strategies to implement Safe School Declaration in a bid to make schools safe for children to return to and build confidence in the education system. Top discussions here.
We have all committed today through a compact that will invest more in education to be able to provide our children the right type of education in the right, secure and safe environment.
This security presence to be effective has to be localized. You have to organize local communities and incentivize them to protect their schools.
At the Nigerian Governors Forum, we are committed to working with other partners to ensure that we keep our schools safe. Need to first of all secure the environment of the country before you start talking about the environment of the school.
Investment in our schools, investment in our education is actually an investment in security and defense.
A cross-sectorial working group will take recommendations and actions forward at the end of the deliberations. In Abuja, I am Musa Abubakar, NTA News.
Let's bring you more business news now as federal government seeks for improved trade volume with South Korea. Kunle Adeyeye tells us all about that.
Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment Nii Adebayo, who hosted the South Korean ambassador to Nigeria, Kim Young-chai, remarked that the volume of trade between the two countries went down from $5 million in 2018 to $1.3 million in 2019. He said the presence of over 20 Korean companies in Nigeria has made it evident that the two countries have strong economic ties. With the takeoff of the African Continental Free Trade Zone, Adebayo implored Korean investors to take advantage of Nigeria's involvement in the AFCFTA in order to have access to Africa's large market. The minister also pleaded with Korean investors to invest in the new special economic zones in the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. As regards ease of doing business, Adebayo itemized one-stop investment center to provide a 48-hour delivery, ports upgrading and establishment of special economic zones in pursuit of Nigeria's industrialization agenda, with the Korean ambassador pledging to make sure his country supports Nigeria's economic policies. And now to the details of Tuesday's tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
As countries around the world count their COVID-19 induced losses, Nigeria has experienced a dip in revenues while expenditure increased, leaving budgetary gaps both at the federal and subnational levels. And to bridge these gaps, the Nigerian Governors Forum is mapping out strategies to shore up revenue and improve tax administration in the country. Muplan Dakok reports.
Lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic cut across all sectors of the economy. And this session by the Nigerian Governors Forum is categorical that the lesson for tax administration points to one direction: the need for a digital future.
The road to technology adoption by tax administrations is now critical.
The focus is on practical in-country and international experiences that have worked and how they can be applied to assuage the situation.
To optimize revenue mobilization, tax authorities must digitalize the full spectrum of their operations.
The adoption of technology in revenue administration processes is crucial and a major enabler for enhanced and sustainable revenue generation in a globalized and knowledge-driven world. Therefore, revenue authorities at all levels must adopt automated processes.
The consensus is for every state to scale up modern, taxpayer-friendly and technology-driven revenue administration to optimize revenue mobilization. In Abuja, Muplang Dakok, NTA News.
And crop farmers in Nigeria will soon be in for a better deal following the inauguration of fertilizer quality control inspectors saddled with the responsibility of ensuring only certified fertilizers are sold to the field soldiers. Yohannes Hassan Barrow tells us all about it.
Adamu Paniso has been farming for decades. For all the years, access to one of the basic farming input fertilizer has been hindering his ambition for a bumper harvest. Whenever he accesses it with less difficulty, it is of much less quality and therefore of little or no value to his crops. Sustained outcry by many farmers like him and the commitment of the federal government to make Nigeria self-sufficient in food necessitated the establishment of the National Fertilizer Control Regulatory System.
We get the data, we can be able to analyze it and make sure we get something out of it.
Sadiq Madibo is among the inspectors who are here to garner knowledge on fertilizer quality control. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development Muhammad Sabananono says the initiative is a drive geared towards reducing cost of production and increasing agricultural yields of crop farmers.
We have seen long before this quite a number of fertilizer produced are adulterated.
It is expected that when people like Madibo commence the periodic quality control and assessment, the bottleneck that Adamu and many other farmers face will be a history. In Kano, Yohannes Hassan Barrow, NTA News.
Now, the Senate is considering a proposed legislation that seeks to establish a national policy on the protection of Nigeria's critical infrastructure. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Onkwo reports that the bill, which has passed second reading, also seeks to establish a critical infrastructure protection task force.
Senate plenary commenced with President of the Senate Ahmed Lawan reading presidential request for the confirmation of Justice Salisu Garba Abdullahi,
the acting Chief Judge of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, as substantive Chief Judge of the court.
The need for national preparedness and response in safeguarding critical infrastructures resonated on the floor through the bill sponsored by Senator Sani Musa.
While the role of the task force will be to provide and facilitate and coordinate the provision of experts' guidance to critical infrastructure to detect, prevent, halt or confine an attack and to recover and restore service.
We've never lacked policies, but implementation, proper strategy and coordination is the problem. This bill will solve all of these problems if passed.
The Integrated Data Management Commission Establishment Bill, sponsored by Senator Yusuf and the National Livestock Management Bureau Bill by Senator Bima Inagi, passed second reading. Senate called on the federal government to provide more incentives to cement producers so as to reduce prices. This followed a motion by Senator Ashiru Yisa. The legislators urged the National Emergency Management Agency to provide relief materials to victims of rainstorm in Olamo Borough local government area of Kogi State, as moved by Senator Issa Jibrin.
In order to boost production of cement, reduce price, and encourage more valuable producers in Nigeria. I think that's perfect.
The Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development to provide minimal seed capitals for the victims in the affected communities.
Senate mourned former Minister of Commerce, led Dr. Mahmoud Tukur, and former Senator Itang Umoyo, as moved by Senators Aishatu Dahiru Binani and Ekon Eyakenyi. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Meanwhile, Speaker, House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila says the National Assembly is to ensure review of Nigerian foreign policy in line with federal government's drive towards addressing the contemporary security, economic and political challenges Nigeria is facing. This was part of his submission at a review of Nigeria's foreign policy in Abuja. National Assembly correspondent Abdullahi Aminu reports.
Various issues capable of accelerating Nigeria's developmental processes were brought up in the Speaker's submission and that of Minister of Foreign Affairs Geoffrey Onyema at the retreat.
Our nation's foreign policy should define the terms on which we engage the rest of the world to address the different manifestations of our shared challenges so that we can each and together survive through this new age of promise and peril.
Foreign policy is therefore dynamic and responsive to changing priorities and interests.
The idea, according to the legislature, is to come up with a way forward for Nigeria to assume its rightful position within the global diplomatic cycles of the 21st century.
It is imperative that we review not only our foreign policy, but indeed the totality of our system politically, socially, and indeed economically.
Such a peace must encompass and as well as engender ideals that will make Nigeria maximize the gains of its relationship with every part of the outside world.
Representatives of Nigeria abroad need to check off the demigod mindset and have a service mindset.
The need to resolve issues surrounding the issuance of passport and national identity card, attention to the plight of Nigerians in diaspora, and how best to identify contradictions that will work for or against the country were among the strategic national interests presented at the retreat. In Abuja, Abdullahi Aminu, NTA News.
News at 10 continues shortly after this break.
Hello and welcome, it's Visual Impressions on NTA and I am Umar Mohammed. Today we will be looking at the gradual emergence of one of Africa's leading teen artists, Tunde Odunlade. In the early 1960s, Tunde was a pioneer member of a workshop organized by expatriate Susan Wenger in Osogbo. Now Visual Impressions had a chat with the second-generation artist of Osogbo School, who practices in a diverse set of mediums. Let's get to find out more on his intricate and highly textured technique in the clips that follow.
A major artistic transformation occurred in Osogbo, a Yoruba town in western Nigeria, in the early 1960s. Expatriates such as Susan Wenger, Yuli Boyer, and Georgina Boyer introduced new techniques and materials to Yoruba artists and urged them to find their own forms of expression. The workshops focused on printmaking, but were intended to help participants to learn to support themselves, and that gave birth to the emergence of Tunde Odunlade, who through several decades of vigorous art practice is now one of Africa's most celebrated batik art tapestry and design artists. Tunde Odunlade was born in 1954 on the 26th of November. He is a Nigerian artist, actor, and musician known for his batik art tapestry and design. He specializes in textile arts and photography.
I'm an artist, and I work with textile and fiber art and then printmaking. I'm from Ile-Ife, but I live in Ibadan, and I live in part in the US. So I've been juggling my life between Nigeria, America, and part of Europe since 1981. And now I decided to have a place in Nigeria that I can say, let's do the art thing. That is music, drama, dance, and of course visual arts.
In the early 1970s, Tunde studied with Yinka Adeyemi, a member of the Osogbo School of Arts that was largely responsible for the explosion of creative contemporary art emanating from Nigeria under the Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife. He developed a technique called batik applique, a process that builds on traditional textile print technique to create wall hangings with unusual depth and texture. His favorite technique